Today, I'm going to be talking about 5 questions that you need to ask yourself before you retire early. Now, as you go through this process of transitioning from professional working career to retirement, this is a big fundamental shift in your life. And so this leads us to our very first question, which is, are you prepared not to work? Now, your initial gut reaction is absolutely. Like, I am definitely prepared not to work. Most people that do retire early, they kind of grind all the way up until that retirement date, whatever date that may be. Now, it could be 45, 50, 55, 60, whatever that personal date is for you. And so you're ready to just finally let go and just to finally retire. But we see this a lot with our clients. It's a lot to take in, right? Because you're used to just working your entire life. You're grinding, you're putting in 40, 50, sometimes 60-hour weeks. If you travel for work, that's a grind on you. You're away from your spouse, you're away from your kids, you're away from your loved ones, you're away from all the things that you love to do. Transitioning from that lifestyle to one where you really don't have to do that anymore, there really is nothing for you to do. It may sound appealing before you retire, but once you actually do retire, it's hard. It's a very hard thing to actually get used to. And the reason why is because you still need a purpose. And so this question of, are you prepared to no longer work, really comes down to finding a new purpose for yourself. So Harvard did a study. It was like a multi-decade long study where they tried to figure out what is the actual source of happiness. And the part of that study was how many hours per week is the ideal amount of hours to work for someone to achieve that optimal level of happiness. And they came out to 8 hours. So 1 day a week. And so I often tell my clients, find whatever your passion is, whatever you find enjoyment doing, whether that's volunteering, whether that's working with kids, or even a part-time job at a fun little job that you might like, and do that. Do that 1 or 2 days a week, just to kind of keep yourself busy, trying to keep yourself connected with your community, and make sure that you're not just completely removed from society and you're sort of this listless and you have no purpose in your life. So question number 1, in my opinion, are you actually ready to retire? That's probably the most important question that you can ask yourself. Question number 2, do you know your retirement age? So not just how many years you have left until your retirement. Yes, that's important. But the point of this question is, how many years of retirement do you actually have? So if you're vying for an early retirement, you're going to have a very long retirement, which can be great, but you need to actually make sure that you're well prepared for that financially. Early retirement does come with its own risks, but I believe that the biggest risk with retiring early is what I call the gap years. These are the years where you're not eligible for Medicare, right? So you're retiring early. Let's say you retire at the age of, say, 55. You can't actually file for Medicare until you're 65. So you got to pay out of pocket for all of these medical health insurance. So it's going to be a premium, a very large premium that you have to pay on top of this, but also you're not going to be filing for Social Security. This is very risky because not only are your expenses elevated from not just a healthcare standpoint, but also maybe some travel. Maybe you want to downgrade your house, but downgrading your house means that you're going to have a higher basis on that property, which means your property taxes are going to be higher. So your expenses are a lot higher. But the other risk to this is you have no other outside source of income. Social Security. You may have some rental properties, but you don't have that Social Security turned on, which is a big factor in determining the success of your retirement. So this is a really big risk because you're going to be withdrawing a large amount out of your portfolio during those gap years. So you need to make sure that whatever you do actually pull out of your portfolio during those gap years, that is sustainable. Make sure it's not too high of a withdrawal rate. In an ideal world, that withdrawal rate will be 4% or lower. But I've seen some plans work where maybe it's a little bit higher during those gap years, or maybe they kind of cut their expenses a little bit whenever the market's on a downturn, or maybe they get a part-time job. It may seem kind of crazy where a part-time job where you're working only say 10 or 20 hours per week, and let's say you're only making say $30,000 or $40,000 a year from this part-time job. That doesn't seem like much during retirement, but that $30,000 or $40,000 can really save your retirement portfolio, which needs to last you for the rest of your life. And if you take care of yourself and you have longevity in your family, that could be 90, 95, or even 100 years old. So that retirement's going to be long, especially if you plan to retire early. So I would say make sure you know exactly what you're getting yourself into and you do plan accordingly. Question number 3, do you know what your total term is? Now, total term is the number of years that you can live on your current assets if your assets did not grow. It's a very simple way to calculate this number. What you're going to do is you're going to take your total net worth and you're going to divide that by your annual spending. So your net worth is going to be all of your assets, your cash, your brokerage accounts, your retirement accounts, and that's going to be divided by your annual spending numbers. And ideally, you want this number to be 30 years. This number can vary depending upon your situation. It's very dependent upon any type of other incomes that you might receive, but this is probably the most important number, in my opinion, whenever we're evaluating someone's financial standing, especially when it comes to retirement planning. Now, there's 2 ways that you can improve this total term number. The first one is going to be your net worth. If you can increase your net worth, right? Saving more money. This is why saving is so important leading up to retirement. If you can save your investment portfolio, if you can save more cash, if you can increase your real estate holdings, whatever the situation might be, that is a net positive. That means your net worth is going to get bigger. The other way, which is sort of the inverse way of improving this number, is going to be reducing your spending. It's very common sense, right? So if you can cut your spending, maybe you're saying, I find that I actually spend a little bit too much going out to dinner, or I have this gym membership that I don't really take advantage of. I could cut that out. Like whatever you can do to trim that spending number, that will increase that number. And again, that 30 number is the ideal number that you would like to achieve. Question number 4. Do you have a real investment strategy? At this point in your life, especially if you're considering an early retirement, you should have a well-defined investment strategy that is right for you. It matches your risk tolerance. You don't have so much risk in your portfolio to any time that you have volatility in the market that you're panicking. Conversely, it's not so conservative to where it's not really growing and doing what it's supposed to be doing. Also, a very important note of this is that your investment portfolio is not one where you're kind of just chasing that shiny object, right? You're not chasing the new high-tech growth stock. You're not putting it all into very risky cryptocurrencies that you read on Reddit. Your investment portfolio should be one that's based on science and data, and the data is pretty clear on this. It is really, really hard to outperform the markets over the long term, and so your best bet in actually achieving the highest rate of return over the long term is to buy low-cost indexed funds. What we do here at my firm is exactly that. We don't get too fancy with our investment portfolio because you don't need to be. It doesn't work. The more fancy you get, the less your performance is going to be. That's what the data says. So we buy low-cost ETFs. The average expense ratio, which is the cost embedded in these funds for our clients, is less than 10 basis points, so 0.1%. If you are looking for an early retirement, you've got to ask yourself that question: is my investment portfolio a real investment plan? And if it's not, then it should be something that you should tackle right away, because the cost of getting that wrong is too great. You can't afford to have an erroneous investment portfolio during retirement, because that can blow up your entire retirement plan. Question number 5. Are your assets protected? So there's 2 components to this. It's an estate plan and insurance. Let's talk about the estate plan first. You want to protect your assets by placing all of your assets inside of your trust. Most of the time, you need to talk to an estate attorney, or at least talk to a financial professional to make sure that does it make sense or not to actually put these assets in this trust. Another big part of this is make sure that your estate plan is actually updated. When's the last time that you've looked at your trust? Is the successor trustee stayed within that trust the person that you really want to administer that trust if something were to happen to you? What about your beneficiaries, right? Who's actually going to be receiving these assets if something were to happen to you? Do you want those beneficiaries to be the same person? If you updated your estate plan 10, 15, 20 years ago, then chances are it's really outdated and it needs to be updated. So take a look at that and make sure that everything is how you wish and hope it to be. The other component to this is insurance. So if you are planning to retire early, a lot of our clients will still have outside expenses that they want to be taken care of if something were to happen to them. A mortgage, if something were to happen to you, it's nice to have an insurance policy, which we typically recommend is going to be a fixed term type policy that's going to pay out and cover that big outstanding liability. Or if you're going to be putting your kids through college, making sure that those college costs are going to be covered, or any other goals or things that you want to be covered, or even your spouse, making sure that your spouse is taken care of if something were to happen to you. So take a look at these two areas and make sure that outside risk, of that outside chance that you just can't account for. We can't account for all the variables in life, but there's one certainty in life, is that the unexpected will happen at some point. You want to see if you can actually protect yourself against those probabilities. So again, I hope this was helpful. My name is Ryan Hughes. I am the founder and portfolio manager at Bull Oak. We are a fiduciary financial advisory firm that helps individuals achieve early retirement. If you want to learn more about us or how we work with our clients, please visit bulloak.com.